go ahead and talk about the 5 reasons that I think that you guys won't want to buy the next-gen NVIDIA cards. And this is not to say that the next-gen NVIDIA cards are going to be good or bad. I don't have any more information than the leaks that are out there. I just think that there are 5 glaring reasons why NVIDIA's next-gen cards are going to have a hard time selling initially. So we can start off with number 1, the biggest and baddest reason. You'll be waiting for AMD's big Navi. The competition from AMD is still yet undetermined, and based on all of the information that's out there on the internet right now, it seems like AMD won't be dropping their cards until late October, early November, which could put people off of a purchase of a next-gen NVIDIA card until they see what AMD's competition is. And since we're expecting NVIDIA to launch their next-gen cards on September 1st, it is more than likely that waiting a month to find out, or a month or 2 to find out what AMD has up their sleeves, could be a short enough wait that a lot of people would make do with that. So I think AMD's competition is a high reason why people won't be picking up the next-gen NVIDIA cards. But that's not the only one. Second one is that NVIDIA's marketing just won't matter right now. NVIDIA is going to be coming out hot and heavy pitching, at least I presume, that DLSS and RTX are going to be the big game changers of this new Ampere generation. They already did this with Turing, and now they're going to drive the point home even more so. RTX is rumored to be somewhere in the 2 to 4 times better on Ampere than it is on Turing, which means ray tracing is going to look better than ever before, and then you can have higher end ray tracing in a lot of the games. That was actually one of the biggest bottlenecks to implementing ray tracing features into various different games, was just the fact that the 20 series, even at the 2080 Ti level, wasn't good enough to hit the frame rate marks that most people come to expect out of modern games. That's going to take a while to implement into new games. You're going to have to implement RTX into a wider swath of games for most people to care. A lot of the big titles that feature RTX right now aren't huge heavy hitters. I think Control was probably the biggest surprise game that was RTX enabled that a lot of people liked, but NVIDIA bet the stake on things like Metro Exodus, which reviewed okay, but didn't seem to have tons of sales. They really haven't had a heavy hitter that really enables RTX. I remember, what was it, Battlefield 5, that was supposed to be a big RTX title, and then that just had its own Firestorm, which, no, it didn't have Firestorm because that was the Battle Royale mode that they never actually released. Anyways, RTX isn't going to matter, but we can talk about DLSS because that's actually the feature that I personally am most excited for in the next-gen NVIDIA cards, but still going to take a while to implement in games. Why buy a card right now if you can't actually use the features that are out there? So what we've seen from games that implement DLSS 2.0 is that it is a much better implementation. And for anybody who's not aware of what DLSS is, it stands for Deep Learning Super Sampling, and essentially uses the AI processors on NVIDIA's cards to upscale an image to a higher resolution. So this works when you have scenarios where you're trying to hit a higher frame rate at a higher resolution. So in case you want to run it at 8K, like I did on my 8K gaming video, which you can check out right up there, I was able to hit that because Death Stranding implements DLSS 2.0. So using the AI upscaling on my RTX 2080 Ti, it rendered it at a lower resolution, and at 8K I was able to get an output of around 55 FPS, which is impossible just on basic rasterization setup. So DLSS 2.0, number 1, looks better, and number 2, seems to perform better than the original DLSS. So that's great. However, there's been rumors out there of the upcoming DLSS 3.0, and if that's true and that launches with the cards, then maybe my point actually won't stand here, and that's supposed to be DLSS will work with any game that has temporal anti-aliasing, which happens to be a heckin' lot of them, and it can just be a feature that can be switched on in games and will happen along the course of game developers implementing it, and they don't have to do any overhead, because one of the things that game developers have to do to implement DLSS is send their game off to NVIDIA servers to actually be machine learned. That's the explain like I'm 5 scenario there. So DLSS 2.0, 3.0, and RTX are great selling points and are going to be the great marketing points from NVIDIA, but don't matter until games support it even more. Death Stranding, probably the biggest game that supports DLSS 2.0 right now. I can't think of another game with RTX that I'm excited for coming out. Cyberpunk's the next big one, I suppose. We'll find out. Number 3. I did not believe that this would necessarily be the case, but as we're getting more information about the VRAM situation on NVIDIA's next-gen cards, I'm thinking potentially, and this one could be a throwaway, which is why I'm going to give you some bonus ones at the end. Number 3, they're going to get more expensive. We're going to end up paying around $1,500 for NVIDIA's top-of-the-line card and probably move the price up the stack so that the 3070 is even more expensive than it once was. I hope I'm wrong in this scenario. I hope that NVIDIA stays at the same price, not expecting a price drop, but if we can get the RTX 2080 Ti replacement to come in at $1,200, I'll be more than happy. But I personally am expecting a price increase at this point, but that brings me to point number 4. Even if NVIDIA releases them at the price point that is what the current 20 series is selling for, it is kind of just too expensive in the current economic climate. Spending $700 to $1,200 right now with the state of the world as it is, I don't think sales are going to take off, especially since it's expected that NVIDIA is only going to be launching their higher end cards early on. So September is when we're expecting the 2080 Ti and 2080 Super replacements, not the ones that are going to come in and replace the 2060 or the 1650. So that's the general idea. The more consumer friendly, budget friendly, wallet friendly cards are going to be 2021, whereas the high end ones are going to be the ones that NVIDIA leads with, because that's how they flex on AMD. That's how they show off all of their great features, is to promote it with the best card available. But $1,200 is really difficult for a lot of people. And then number 5, fifth reason why I don't think you're going to be buying the next gen NVIDIA cards, they're not going to be available. I just think that personally, based on what I'm seeing in the current trends of consumer electronics, supply chains are royally screwed up. Getting enough at launch to actually ship them out to everybody who even wants one is likely going to be a pipe dream. And this is from experience with NVIDIA's previous launches. The 20 series was nowhere to be found for the first month or so, even though they officially launched and it technically wasn't a paper launch. They just simply weren't able to produce enough chips to meet everybody's demand. And they also had issues of the 2080 Ti's dying, and then they had to send out replacements, but then they ran out of the ability to send out replacements because they didn't have enough chips. So you're not going to be able to get it even if you wanted to, or you're going to have to place a pre-order, because simply the fact that people expect that this is the generation that they've been waiting for. They've been holding off on upgrading from their 10 series because the 20 series was so underwhelming. This might be the generation that forces people to leap, but they won't be able to because so many people will have the exact same idea. So those are the 5 reasons that I think that you won't be buying the next gen NVIDIA cards. But I got 2 bonus ones, as I mentioned. Number 1 is you're on Intel. Yeah, if you're on an Intel platform, you're not going to want to buy the next gen NVIDIA cards because, as we've heard from Gamers Nexus video, which you can check out right up there, is that it's expected that Ampere, especially the high-end cards, are going to be on PCI Express 4.0. But they're also going to saturate PCI Express 3.0 or even demand more than what's available. So there is one platform that has PCI Express 4.0 enabled, and one that's supposed to have it enabled but doesn't, and that's Intel. Intel doesn't have PCI Express 4.0, so even if you were planning on getting the RTX 3090, the highest end card that NVIDIA is going to offer to consumers, you actually might not be able to get the full performance out of it because you're bandwidth restricted by your PCI Express slot, because Intel actually couldn't keep up with the times. And while your Z490 motherboard might support PCI Express 4.0, your Comet Lake CPU doesn't, and until Intel comes out with a roadmap for when they're going to release Rocket Lake so you can actually enable those PCI Express 4.0 lanes, your GPU is going to be slower on the Intel platform. And we'll have to see if that's an actual marketing push that NVIDIA does. They could obviously just say, hey, it doesn't matter because you're using DLSS to play at 4K, so you're actually not bottlenecked somehow. They could spin it to still say Intel is like a preferred partner, but you're realistically not going to get the fastest performance out of PCI Express 3.0. And then number 7, the second bonus one, is that it is rumored that the upcoming reference cards from the RTX 3090 are going to feature what is known as a 12-pin PCI Express power connector, which is something that doesn't ship in any current power supply. So likely either NVIDIA is going to have to supply an adapter, or they're going to have co-launch with some new power supplies that are going to be able to support this power input. So whether or not you're going to be willing to buy a new power connector is likely there, but also consider the fact that the reason they need this 12-pin PCI Express power connector is because these things are rumored to pull about 300 to 350 watts. And so we're seeing even on the partner cards that are coming out that they require triple 8-pin power. So you're going to need a beefier power supply than you had for the 10th and 20th gen series GPUs. So power concerns are definitely going to be there. PCI Express concerns are going to be there. Price concerns are there. Supply concerns are there. The marketing just isn't something that you necessarily vibe with right now because the games aren't out, and you might potentially be waiting for AMD to counterpunch with Big Navi, and you're going to be holding off on your purchase until that happens. So those are my 5 plus 2 bonus reasons why you won't be buying NVIDIA's next gen GPUs. Let me know down in the comments, friends, if you agree with this. Let me know if you have other bonus points that you think that I didn't cover in this, or if none of these matter to you and you don't care because heckin' it's a new NVIDIA GPU and you're going to be purchasing it no matter what. Even if Jensen says that these cards are used to produce global warming and you're bringing about the end of the world by raising the global temperature to 300 degrees Celsius, you don't care. You're going to be buying the 3090. Well, all the power to you. Let me know down in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Get subscribed. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video.